Good evening, Assalamu alaikum viewers. Welcome to another episode of Community Issues. As usual, we are back with your favorite fortnightly program. The topic for discussion this evening is hate crime. Now, some of you may have heard on the news or may have seen it on television that some far-right group has been targeting the Muslim community up and down in the country and have been sending a crime letter called Punish a Muslim, and the day is the 3rd of April. As I said, this letter has been sent to many Muslims up and down in the country, including some of our Muslim parliamentarians who have received this letter, including the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Tonight I have three very intellectual guests in my studio who have a substantial experience in the field of hate crime. Let me introduce you to them. My first guest is sitting on my far right is Dr. Zulfikar Ali, who is the chairman of Muslim Association in Newham. He's also a lay magistrate and someone who's worked in local authority for many years, including Tower Hamlets and Newham Council and many more, and someone who is involved with the community and has a vast experience in the field. Dr. Zulfikar Ali, a very big welcome. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Sitting next to Dr. Zulfikar Ali is another very talented young man, if I may call him, Masoom Zain Mia, who is a civil engineer by profession, a lecturer, a PhD researcher, and also a prospective parliamentary candidate. I won't say for the which party, but a very big welcome.
Thank you very much. It's for the Labour Party, you can say that. It's not an issue.
Thank you for making the time to come to my program.
Thank you for having me.
And sitting on my right, he's someone that you know very well, and it's not the first time that she's come to my program. I'm very delighted to have Mumtaz Khan. She's a senior social worker, a community activist, a community leader, someone who's involved with many organizations. She's also a local government candidate for the 2018 election in Newham. Mumtaz, a very big welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you very much for coming along. Right, my first question, before I ask you a question, can I ask our control room to show a glimpse of the letter that has been sent to various Muslim people up and down in the country? If I could ask our control room to show that letter, please. Thank you. Here, as you can see, this letter had been sent to many Muslim people up and down in the country, including some of our MPs, and it is suspected that the letter had been sent by some far-right group, and the purpose of this is to destroy or cause disruption, if I may put it like this, in our multicultural, multi-faith community in Great Britain. And you can see in that letter there are various crimes against which they award various points. Now, I'm not quite sure what you get for these points or what you get out of this crime, but I'm hoping that by the end of our program, having had a discussion with our guest, we should be able to get to the bottom of it and be able to tell you what you can do in order to protect yourself and to ensure that these people do not have a place in our community, they do not succeed in dividing our community. Great Britain has always been a multicultural, multi-faith community. We have always lived peacefully next to each other despite our differences, and I hope the far-right group will not achieve their objective. So Mumtaz, if I may start with you, what do they mean by hate crime? What is the definition of hate crime?
Okay. So any criminal offense where a victim suggests that he/she has been targeted due to their religion or the color of their skin or their sexuality, or it could even be due to their disability
Yes.
that they are targeted. The victim can say, this is hate crime.
Yes. Right. So that's the definition of hate
That's
crime.
the definition
Okay,
of
so-
hate crime.
If that's the case, when people receive a letter, the one we've just shown on our screen, what impact does that have in our community in terms of dividing people and getting each other to hate each other?
I think you've said it. This letter, it's been circulated, and I understand it's gone as far as targeting our Muslim parliamentary members.
Yes.
I have seen this letter being circulated on Facebook, and the impact this is having is fear. It's
Yes.
building fear
Of course.
among our community. And I think we'll go on to expanding in details how it's having impact.
When you talk about fear, I mean, by looking at this letter and looking at some of the crime they mention and the points that are awarded, any human being who is Muslim and perhaps wears a Muslim clothes would be afraid to go out now, wouldn't they?
Perhaps you should read out what's actually been described in that letter. Women wearing hijabs. If you attack a woman who has a hijab on, if you pull her hijab off, there's points that you score.
That's right, yes.
I mean, it's of course our community is scared, and we are looking at. We'll look at kind of figures and facts in terms of the level of hate crime that's risen. But if they are targeting particularly women and children, they are the most vulnerable in our community.
Yes. I mean, some of the points that you've mentioned, you get 10 points for verbal abuse of a Muslim. So if you see a Muslim, you verbally abuse them, you get 10 points. Who are there to give us points, and what do these points mean?
I think it's important also to put it in some kind of perspective. This is to create fear in our community.
Yes.
This is to divide our community. This is to also put about hate. Okay, London is such a diverse community.
Absolutely.
And it's a tolerant city.
Yes.
Okay, and this is just to divert us from the good work community is doing in a united way.
Right. I will come back to you. Let me go to Dr. Zulfikar Ali, who is a lay magistrate and chairman of the Muslim Association in Newham. Have many people in Newham received this letter?
Well, we had a meeting with our local police last week. In fact, we're going to have another one towards the end of next week, before 3rd of April. And the information we had at the time was that there's only been 2 letters that had been received in Newham. They were both reported to police. Police took immediate action, went to see the victims, and actually took the details. And I think the key issue here is that
are police actually giving importance to this letter?
Police
are they taking it seriously?
Police are given very importance. So that's in fact the question that we asked in terms of when they arranged the meeting, and clearly they are giving it high importance and high priority. And one of the issues I did raise with them was that why can't we recognize this as a religiously aggravated crime as opposed to simply hate crime? And the answer they've given was that this is at national level, is being investigated. In fact, the letter actually originated from South Yorkshire, from Sheffield.
So this letter has originated from Sheffield. Have they managed to track it down? Or?
They have tracked it down. In fact, that the postmarks actually are linked back to Sheffield as well. So it is being investigated. It is given the serious, that it deserves. But
have they said who's behind it?
Well, they are not saying much at this stage because obviously they think they will
It's already
get to the
investigation.
culprits. They
Right.
will get to the culprits. I
Right.
think the fundamental message we're trying to get is that, as you said earlier, Mumtaz, that this is to increase fear amongst the Muslim communities. And we shouldn't. In fact, I wouldn't even want to share this letter with anybody. I wouldn't even want to say the 3rd of April because we don't want to create fears among our own community. In fact, that is what they want us to do. They've sent about 15 letters across the country, and if you look at the way we are sharing it through social media and WhatsApp, in fact, we are doing their job for them.
Right.
So one of the messages I want to get across here today is that we ought to think twice before we send that.
Look,
And
no
in fact-
matter what happens, they are not going to divide us.
No, no,
They are not
absolutely.
going to stop the Muslim community from going about its normal
No, no.
daily business.
And that is the sort of discussion we had with police last week, that we want to make sure that there is adequate community protection. But I said to them that we don't want uniformed police officers on Green Street or other shopping areas on 3rd of April.
Because that
We
would
don't
be
want to
sending the wrong message.
We
on
don't
it.
want to be alarmed.
Right.
Yes, we need to be vigilant, we need to protect ourselves, but we don't need to be kind of extra cautious about this. In fact, when we went a stage further, we asked the Department of Further Education to actually issue guidance to schools. Because schools, parents are worried. They're asking head teachers and children, what do we do? Luckily, 3rd of April is half term.
Right.
And
so
therefore,
there's no
you know,
scope.
and if
Right,
you think
okay.
about 3rd of April, there is no significance of the day.
Right.
You know, there is, in fact, 2nd of April is bank holiday.
Right.
3rd of April is an ordinary Tuesday. So there isn't anything. I think this is just pure scaremongering, creating fear amongst our community. But I think the key thing for us is to make sure, yes, we are aware
Is
of
to
it.
remain vigilant, yes?
We need to be vigilant, but we don't actually promote their cause. If we are actually circulating this letter ourselves, we are helping the cause of the perpetrators. And that is precisely, I think, we should be discouraging through a channel like yourselves.
Right. Okay. Look, in terms of hate crime and data, I mean, if we look at the statistics over the last few years, would you not agree with me that hate crime has been on the increase over 2015, 16, 17, and now within 2018? Do you agree with me?
Well, I think the statistics speaks for itself, and clearly, you know, the far right movement, the international events, the war in Iraq, you know, situation in Syria, and the way, unfortunately, the mainstream media is portraying the Muslims across the world. You know, if just give you an example, if, for example, is a young man with a Muslim name happens to have attacked somebody, then he is a Muslim terrorist. Yet somebody else who may kill somebody in America, he may have a mental problem. It's just the way media is stereotyping the role of Muslims and portraying that all Muslims are being tarnished with the same basically brush. So in terms of statistics, you're absolutely right. You know, the hate crimes have risen. Just to give you an example, in 2016 and 17, the law, by the way, says that all hate crimes now need to be broken down into different categories: race, sex, you know, religion, disability, etc. And during 2016 and 17, there were 62,685 crimes which were reported, and
Were they hate crimes?
these
62,000?
are all hate crimes.
Right.
Yeah, but 78% of those were actually race hate crimes. And if you compare that data with 2011 and 12, there was only 36,000. So it's
Right.
gone up from 36,000
So it's
in
doubled
11 to
itself, more or
12
less.
to 62,000 in 2016 and 17. So it's almost double.
Doubled.
And if you look at the religious hate crimes, you know, last year there was 5,949, which was 7% of the total crimes. However, the same numbers in 11-12 was actually 1,618. So the racial hate crimes have gone up by fourfold.
And do you think the far right has something to do
Well, clearly,
with this increase?
clearly the political situation with the Brexit, with the far right movement, the statements they come up with, the action they actually, you know, portray, the way they utilize the Muslims kind of, you know, activities, these things have actually contributed quite significantly to the rise. And I think the basic point is the misunderstanding between the indigenous community and the Muslims. And I'm pleased to say the Muslims are actually going out of way to welcome non-Muslims into mosques. You know, we had the Open Your Mosque Day last year. It was very well attended in many mosques. Previously, I've had people telling us that, in fact, I don't know what goes in the mosque. And what happened in our mosque last year was that when these indigenous non-Muslim people came in, they saw people praying. When the prayer time came up, everybody stood and got engaged in prayer, and there was a pin drop silence, and they thought, this is not what we thought actually happened in the mosque.
Right.
So they had it completely
So people's
different.
perception are changing.
Perception was totally different. The mosque was somewhere.
But surely that
somehow
perception hasn't changed enough.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this problem.
No, they were the fear, in a sense, with the indigenous community was that mosques are probably a breeding ground for terrorists. But that isn't the case.
Right.
You know, we're actually helping young people to move away into kind of community centres to the mosque so that they stay away from the street corners.
Sure. Dr. Ali, I will come back to you. Let me go to Masoom Zain Mia. You're a civil engineer by profession, a lecturer,
Yeah.
and also a PhD researcher.
Yeah.
What are you researching on?
Well, what I'm researching on, it's to do with civil engineering. It's in structural defence in hazardous areas. For example, if there is an earthquake
Sure.
or a flooding, how we would stabilise the soil or the
Right.
structure
The foundation, yeah. Thank you.
when this occurs.
Sure.
So
And when are you hoping to complete that?
I hope I'm complete. If my supervisor's watching, I'm hoping to complete this by a year and a half.
Best of luck.
So yeah,
Okay, let's come back to this.
sure.
You are a lecturer in a college as well, aren't you? Has this letter had any impact amongst the students in your university?
Well, the unique thing is within this within the university I'm a student, and also I'm a person that delivers lectures as well, and so I'm privileged to both kind of information. And information within the students, I have many student friends. They're very angry and upset about the current situation, and their points are very valid. Okay, sometimes they feel that if this was happening to another community or another religion, it would have been taken much more seriously. Well, I'm not saying it's not been taken seriously, but this is the feeling of the majority of the youngsters. And yeah, it is causing, unfortunately, some division within the younger ranks.
Right.
Because as you can imagine, sometimes there ain't something that we can just we can answer straight away when they have valid questions like, what have we done? Majority of these students are training to be doctors, some nurses, civil engineers, to help better the society and the community, and predominantly are Muslims. So by them receiving these letters, and if I may add, we actually know someone who's received this letter recently, and now they don't open their post. They've put a sellotape on their door because they're so scared that they've seen stories like there might be some powders within this.
Has there been an incident with this letter or any other hate crime letters?
At the moment, it's under investigation, and the police, I'm happy to say, they've taken it very seriously. They have so far in this situation, which I know about, they have done a good job. But what it's done, it's made the youth very angry, and in terms of thinking there's a double standard somewhere, and it's not been taken.
What is that double standard? Can you be
The
a bit
double
more
standard
specific?
was, as I sort of briefly touched before, I mean, if it was maybe from another community or
Right.
another background or
Okay.
another religion,
Yeah.
if they were receiving these kind of letters, I think it would have been
Taken a bit more seriously.
more seriously, and the naming would have been different.
Right.
A backbench parliamentary member did say this is inflicting terrorism. I mean, this is inflicting terror within the hearts of people.
Right.
And she did go further to mention that this is an act of terrorism because you are putting fear, installing
people's
fear
life, yeah.
within people, right?
I mean, Mumtaz touched on earlier on about building fear into people, and surely some of the crime that they mention and the points, for example, throw acid in face of a Muslim, you get 50 points for that. I mean, that is clearly...
This infuriates.
Yes, absolutely.
Infuriates people because, as you know, recently in Newham we had an incident when acid was thrown on a very talented young lady.
Yes.
Right.
That was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was last year, and we
Yes.
had many incidents within the within London and maybe further as well. Now, when the youth or even non-youth people look at this kind of thing, like throwing acid on people. Like
Can I just stop you because we need to go on a short break.
Sure,
we
sure.
will continue. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We're going on a short break. We'll be back. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back after our short break. Thank you for staying with us. On the other end, if you have just joined us, a very big welcome. The topic for discussion this evening is hate crime. For those of you who have been watching this program from the beginning, you will know that some of our Muslim people have been receiving a letter from an unknown source, and that letter was titled Punish a Muslim Day, 3rd of April 2018, and there are various crimes that are listed on that letter, and against those crimes there are points that are awarded. It is suspected that the letter had been written by the far right-wing group, but as of yet the police haven't managed to catch the culprit, but it is suspected that the letter had been written from Sheffield. Oh, that's where they've been posted from, and the police are taking this matter very seriously. The purpose of this program is to raise people's awareness. It's not to build fear into people, and to ensure that we challenge those far right-wing group in a positive way, so that they don't have a place in our multicultural, multi-faith community. And it is with that spirit that we are doing this program tonight. Before we went on break, I was talking to Masoom Zain Mia, who is a PhD research student as well as a lecturer and a civil engineer, and we were talking about what impact this has had in his university amongst students. And Masoom, you were saying
yeah, one of the things I was mentioning about was in regards to, if you look at one of the points, it talks about throwing acid on someone's face.
yes.
Okay, all kind of action is appalling there, and especially this acid when they talk about, like, we've just managed to calm down the youth in terms of the recent acid attacks that happened.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people from the Muslim and the non-Muslim community got together, and we managed to build more bridges.
Yes.
And at a time now, they've come out with this, right? And it's infuriated a lot of the Muslim community. One of the things I do want to mention as well, we have far right leaders, right, causing a lot of mayhem, misinformation, and which has nothing to do with Islam. And unfortunately, this is received by some people who have very, very less information about Islam. Yeah. And it is believed by them, right? And the uprising of the far right has definitely been up recently, and by sometimes punishing these leaders by a few weeks here and there, it doesn't send out a good signal.
Right.
You know.
So, what do you think that they need to do?
Well, I think one thing that clearly needs to be done is united. We need to stand united, right, from all communities.
Right.
And
so all the community needs to come together.
Needs to come together and let this not cause a division amongst ourselves. Right. All right. Yeah. And we need to come out openly and say we will not tolerate this. And
do you think that the law is harsh enough to punish these people? Maybe I could target that to our lay magistrate, Dr. Ali.
I think the law is absolutely clear, and I think the police authorities
But do you think that the punishment that these two people that we talked about, that Zain Bhai mentioned,
I think it's difficult,
have given them the kind of punishment that they deserve?
It really depends, because each case is different. You know, because obviously the judiciary had to look at the circumstances, the way the sentencing is awarded is based on aggravating features, mitigating factors, and what is the impact, etc., in terms of society as a whole. But I'm sure the judges would have taken those into consideration.
But on the contrary, if a Muslim had done this, and as some of the speakers have said, they would have been labelled as a terrorist, and perhaps the sentencing would have been much harsher. Do you not agree?
Again, it depends on the cases, and I think the one positive side of this thing is that 83% of the hate crimes which were actually taken to court did result in successful prosecution. That itself is quite positive. That actually shows the police forces are well trained to deal with investigation of hate crimes, and they're gathering enough evidence to make sure that there is a good case in courts which can be proven beyond reasonable
I
doubt.
accept what you are saying, but do you not think that the court should be setting an example by giving these far-right leaders a harsh sentence so that the others would think twice before committing such crime or being even involved with it?
I think that is the whole point of the sentencing, that we actually let community know, send a message across that actually we mean business and we should be deterring. Sentences are deterrent, and that is how it should be.
Zain, what do you think? Do you agree with it?
Well, I agree partially, partially I agree, but I think the sentences don't go far enough. I mean, as you mentioned before, if this was done by a Muslim individual, which we totally condemn, which we will never stand by any of these people. But if a Muslim did carry out the same crime, I think the sentences, and everybody knows the sentences, would be much more higher. I just want to give you a small story. Myself, I'm trying to seek my road to Parliament, if you like to call it. And while I was growing up, I travelled to many places like, say, Bournemouth, Southampton, and so forth. There wasn't much issues. Recently, while I was travelling to these areas, for the reasons why I mentioned earlier, I had people in the background calling me Paki, right? Sometimes I didn't want to drive, and I was on a train. I heard people calling me Paki openly, and there was nobody saying anything about it. And it just definitely hurt me, because
it's like going back to the 70s when they used to come out Paki bashing. You know, those terminologies are coming back, aren't they?
Yes, definitely. And within my Twitter inboxes, it'd be like saying, wanna be Paki politician, or we don't want any more Pakis in Parliament, or any Paki councillors, if I be quite explicit.
No, absolutely.
I don't want to shy away from what's happening. So this is something that has infuriated a lot of people, because I have managed to...
Do you think that will deter our people from becoming
this is
a mainstream politician?
Well, this is one of the reasons it gives me more fuel to proceed.
Right.
But unfortunately, we still do have some people, because there's certain times, there's so much certain people can take. Even our parliamentarians now, I mean, they're receiving so much abuse, right? We are British, we are contributing, and we are doing everything right, and once you're doing everything right, you still are receiving this, and this is one of the things that are asked by the youth again and again and again. What have we done?
Right. Okay, I'll come back to you again. Let me go to Momtaz. Momtaz, you're a very senior, experienced social worker, and someone who's been in the community for a very long time, a community activist, an aspiring politician, if I may say so. Looking at it from the social services point of view, a letter of this sort, how does this impact on our school children?
I think when I last kind of checked, something like 29 police force reported that hate crime had risen in education establishment by 48%. Now that's really high. And what this suggests is that we need to be investing more in our education system so that we educate our young children. not to be a perpetrator of hate
Right.
crime.
Right.
B, that if children are a victim of hate crime, we need to have the right resources to put in place
Right.
to tackle that.
But given the resources constraint that local authorities are under nowadays, do you think they would ever have the resources to put those in place?
I'm just saying that it's absolutely crucial that we put in that resource, because you know, we need to have children raised in a healthy environment. We need young children to get formal education. We need children to be in school, and the result of some of these incidents, it's having a huge impact on young children. Now, bullies, you know, if a child is being bullied, you know, we've seen enough research to say it could result with young children self-harming.
Yes, psychological impact and
The
everything else.
impact
Yes.
is huge.
Yes, absolutely.
Young children refuse to go to school.
Yes.
And there's also some research that will say, you know, victims may become perpetrators.
Right.
At
So it gets to a
older
point where
age.
they
So
fight back, do they? Or?
If a child believes it's okay to be hit, you know, at a later age,
They will
this child
retaliate.
is going to think
Retaliate,
it's
yeah.
okay to hit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and this is where we have a responsibility.
Sure,
We have a social responsibility, and as parents, we also have a responsibility to make sure that if we start seeing signs where young children are, engaging in violent behavior, engaging in hate crime, we need to address those in our homes. If we see that,
How can we address this? I mean, what can parents do
okay,
to address it, and
good question.
what are
I
the
think-
agencies that
I
are
think
available
as parents,
to help them?
you will know your children.
Right.
And when something is wrong, you as parents have the responsibility to deal with that. Now, if my child refused to go to school, okay, there's got to be other reasons why. One day I can understand. The second day, you know, I'm going to think, is he really feeling unwell? What's the reason given? Third day, you know, I as a parent will start questioning what's happening. Okay, I will need to communicate with school
Sure.
to make sure, you know, to get to the bottom of the problem. Okay, often peer pressure, you know, external pressure is going to have a huge impact on a child's daily life. And as parents, we need to build better relationships so that if a child is a victim, we actually deal with that. We understand, and we also
That's by working in partnership with the school, isn't it?
with
And with all the other relevant stakeholders.
Yes.
But do you think the school actually takes these things seriously and addresses the issue accordingly?
You know, I do believe that education establishments are much more accommodating now. You know, we've seen the changes in the way schools are now dealing with bullies.
Yes.
Okay, you know, there are counsellors in school, but you know, what I'm saying is that we need to be working in partnership with the education department. We as parents also have a lot of responsibility in that.
Okay. My next question to you is, we talked about, okay, the school works in partnership with the parents and with all the other relevant stakeholders that needs to be involved.
I think
the
in
police.
response to, if I
Sorry.
can just add,
Yeah.
in response to the letter, I believe there are some schools who are addressing it.
Right.
So they're having multi-agency meetings
Right.
in the premises.
Sure.
To make sure that all resources are, you know,
Put in place,
put in place, and that a multi-agency approach
Yeah.
is kind of conducted.
Sure.
So that involves social services, the police, the education department,
Yes.
and health.
Sure, sure. The police are also part of that multi-agency group, if I may put it.
Yes.
Do you think, given the current constraint on policing all over the country, do you think that they have special officers dedicated who understands these issues to deal with it?
Okay, I mean, it's not a political show, and I don't particularly want to go into kind of talking about politics, but the current government truly is failing. Okay, the cutbacks on police officers on the street, we hardly see any.
Right.
Okay, what I can say that in a recent launch by Sadiq Khan, he's created a hate crime reporting hub.
Yes.
And I understand that there are 5 specialist trained police officers who are actually investigating hate crime that's been reported, particularly.
But Sadiq Khan himself has been a victim of hate crime. People have been sending him many messages, including saying, "Paki, go home," or "You can't, you can't rule us," or something along those lines. Recently, there was something on the social media whereby he made a statement and read out some of the emails that people have been sending to him, which are of a hate nature.
And you can see they're operating at all level. They are targeting Muslims wherever they are, regardless of what status you're holding.
Yeah. Magistrate Dr. Ali.
I think, yeah.
You're a magistrate, you're a lay magistrate, you often come across, I'm sure, probably some of these cases.
Every day, unfortunately, in our course. But can I go back to why they're targeting high-profile people? Because that is where they get the better publicity.
Right. So
If
do you think that
if an ordinary person receives a
these
letter,
far-right groups are a publicity-seeking group, do you think, or do they actually
they're promoting
mean
their
business?
cause through an international media? Because as soon as somebody gets a letter, it goes to the press, and everybody knows in the whole country that actually, yes, Sadiq Khan had a letter, 4 MPs had the letters, etc. So this is their tactics of actually promoting their cause and actually creating the fear. But going back to this creation of hub, it's a good initiative, but it is an isolated response to the current situation.
Okay,
but the key thing
going
is,
back to the special police officers.
I disagree with that.
Yeah.
I disagree with that, because not only they are seeking attention, okay, but we can never be good enough for these people. Okay,
I think that is underestimating ourselves, to be honest with you, Mumtaz. Sadiq Khan wouldn't have been a mayor of London if he wasn't good enough.
The Muslim community have gone out of their way, okay, to integrate. Okay, we women were targeted, labelled, saying that we don't go out, we don't integrate. Okay, I would say that's not the case anymore. Okay, we are out there, we are professional women, we are integrating in the community. I'm proud to be a British citizen here. Okay, regardless of whatever status we're in. Okay, it almost like it feels we're never going to be good enough.
Mumtaz, can I just ask you something?
It's actually a professional animosity, and they fear, actually they think that we can't achieve those positions ourselves, and these people have. So it's a kind of jealousy as well. I think the point I was trying to make earlier was that having 5 officers trained to deal with hate crime is not good enough.
No, and that's the point I was going to put to you precisely.
We need the entire police officer to be trained. One of the reasons, we're actually having, I think for every crime reported, there are 6 which go unreported. And the reason is that people don't have trust.
So 1 in 6 crime is reported.
Absolutely. And the 6 that are not reported is because people don't have faith in the system. I.e., is there any point in reporting? Is somebody going to be done about this? Am I going to end up in court, etc.?
So in other words, people have lost their faith. Lost their faith in the police force.
Police force is the
who are meant to be
investigate.
providing us with protection and addressing the issues.
So the key thing is
the reality is it could be far far
Well, the situation is far
deeper
situation
than
is
what
far-
we are
Oh, yeah,
perceiving
yeah,
to.
yeah. Situation is far
I
worse
think-
than it was
Yeah,
reported.
Zain wants to come in.
I
don't you,
think
Zain?
one thing I do want to I do agree with Sister Mumtaz when she was saying how it is. This is echoed.
Mm.
People, the younger people especially, they think whatever they do, they are not good enough. Okay, some have become one of the top, probably the top professionals of the country, right, and are probably going to be much more affluent later. But what they feel is no matter what they do, how much education they have achieved or what status they're at. Look at Sadiq Khan. A person on his caliber is getting these kind of threats.
Do you think that Sadiq Khan now believes that there is a glass ceiling?
I think one thing, I think Sadiq Khan has definitely by introducing this hub,
Yeah.
it's definitely a start. Yeah,
Okay.
I think more could be done in terms of the central government funding because the police officers that I've interacted with,
Well,
they
it's
always
definitely
wanted to do more.
underreported at the moment because we heard from the lay magistrate that only 1 in 6 crime are reported. So that means the other 6 are not reported. So just think of the severity of the problem, the extent of the problem. And, surely it's something that the government is not addressing, in my opinion.
Yes, definitely. This is why more investment,
More resources needs to
more
come into it.
resources needs to come into. And some of the police officers that we've spoken to, they definitely want to do more, right? But their hands are tied sometimes. Like some stations are closed, right? And it's not always about making.
Zaid, I need to go on another break. Sorry, it's always
me. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. We need to go on a short break. We'll be back straight after. Stay with us. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. We are back from our short break. On the other end, if you have just joined us, a very big welcome. The topic for discussion this evening is hate crime. As you know, we've been talking about this for the last 2 segments. This is our last segment. There is a free telephone number on our screen. If you wish to phone into the program and participate, you're welcome to do so. You can put any questions to our panel of guests in terms of what you can do, how to stay safe, and to ensure that any disruptive hate message of this nature does not segregate our multicultural, multi-faith community, and that we stand united to defy these racist thugs. So if you do have any views or any concern, please phone into our program and our panel of guests will try and advise you to their best of ability. Mumtaz, do you think that the Muslim community in Great Britain have integrated enough to be able to live with the rest of the multi-faith community living in Great Britain? Or do you think they still have some distance to go?
Okay. Firstly, I think who is defining this integration. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, the Muslim community is far integrated. Okay. The Muslim community, despite the fact that their mosques, their homes, their private spaces being targeted. Okay, we are accommodating homeless people in our mosque. We go out from the mosque, from the community, we go out and we're supporting areas where flooding took place, a couple of years ago. Okay, we as Muslim people, we are trying, I would say, really, we're trying to get on with the outside community,
the rest of the community.
The rest of the community.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so
just
I'm
to,
not
just
really
to sort of reinforce what you were saying about the Muslim community going out of their way. I mean, after the Grenfell disaster, the Muslim community, the work they did, it was applauded by the other communities.
So I really don't know where that question comes from, that the Muslim community is not integrating.
Right.
Okay, if you say, okay, Muslim women are not going to clubbing, and I'm sorry, if you're saying that I can't go and socialize at that level, and that's called integration, lots of people will disagree with that.
Absolutely, yeah. But do you think, as a Muslim woman, do you think that when they send out a message telling others to pull off your headscarf or to throw acid on your face, does that make you scared? Does that deter you from going out?
It wouldn't deter me personally.
Right,
because
but there are other women out there.
You're right. I'm, I think over the years, having kind of faced direct racism, having faced, there's been incidents on my family. We've all kind of experienced different level of assaults and incidents of racial and hate crime. I think it wouldn't certainly deter me, but I do fear for my Muslim sisters out there. If this is the kind of message that is being spread among the community, they need to be cautious. They need to be vigilant. Okay. They need to stay safe.
Right. I will come back and ask you. What is it that they need to do to remain safe, especially on the 3rd of April. But let me ask the others. Maybe I could start with Masoom Zain Mia. What is your views in terms of integration?
Well, if we're going to talk about integration, I clearly agree that we are integrating, but I go beyond that. I think we're leading this within this subject. If you look at the achievement of Muslims in terms of education, business, and the social aspect, I think we are leading within this field, right? And even in terms of charity, it was said that the Muslims within the UK...
Do you think that it is because of our success that these people are jealous?
I think this occurrence is happening mainly due to ignorance and
lack of education.
Right. And also, as mentioned before, some of these so-called far-right leaders, right? They are exacerbating the situation and picking, yes, these bad apples that we have on our side, so-called our side, which is they don't represent our side, but they claim to, and these so-called far-right leaders are playing on this, right? But coming back to this integration question, I mean, as a British Muslim, my friends and myself, we sometimes ask ourselves, how much more, what else
that you need to do?
Yes.
Okay.
This is absurd sometimes.
Okay, let me put the same question to our lay magistrate, Dr. Ali. I mean, what are your views on this?
I think both Mumtaz and Masood have already said very positive stuff, which is important. But I think integration is a very subjective phrase. Who defines integration? It is unfortunate.
That's what Mumtaz have said.
That's right, but nationally.
But you see, the stereotype of media.
Well, the fact
give
is
bad names to the Muslims. The way they play things, they make the Muslims the terrorists.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's a two-way process. In fact, I think we have gone well beyond the call to actually integrate. Look, coming here from wherever we come from, settling here, being successful in all our walks of life, that has demonstrated that we haven't got to those status without integration. Right. We have integrated educational system, we have integrated in parliamentary system, we integrate all walks of life, and that is important. But I think there is this minority within
the far-right group would claim that we are draining their welfare system. Do you agree with that?
But that is a sense of jealousy from their perspective. Because they feel, I'd give you an example. When I started a job back here in late 80s in a Hackney Council, a colleague of mine said to me that, do you realize that you've taken my son's job? Okay. And I said to him, seriously, I didn't understand at the time. I said, what are you trying to say? And he says, had you not been in UK, this job would have gone to my son. And this was in mid-80s. And I thought, my goodness, this is the kind of thinking there is. So I think it's very important. Yes, I think gone beyond the minimum requirement, and to actually feel that we need to do more. That itself is, I think, kind of ruling themselves out in terms of integration. We've done enough. It's a two-way street, and I think we need to work hand in hand with the wider community. We've got good relations amongst all communities, so we need to benefit from those.
It
Look
also
at the mosques,
doesn't.
so we're opening up, we're giving people food, we're sheltering them. Glenfield you mentioned already. Look at the charities that we've contributed. We're actually giving machinery to hospitals.
Okay, can I just ask you from a professional point of view then? You're a lay magistrate, as I've always been saying. Do you think, obviously when you are hearing a case in a court, there are guidelines which you have to abide by. Do you think that the sentencing guide needs to be revisited here in Great Britain? If you compare the sentencing of black and minority people with their white counterpart for the same sort of crime, it would appear that black and minority people get a far harsher sentence than their white counterpart. And for a lot of these crimes, as we've said earlier on, these far right leaders have seemed to got away with very little punishment. So under those circumstances, do you not think that the sentencing guide needs to be changed, and it should be the same guide for all, regardless of their colour, their gender or their faith?
I think in terms of judicial decisions, there are cases which are only triable magistrate court. There are those who can only go to Crown Court and High Court, but then there are those who are either way. So sometimes when magistrates sit on certain cases, they feel that sentencing needs to be more, and they actually send cases to Crown Court because the judge has more power than the magistrates will do that.
Yes.
But in terms of actually the sentencing guidelines, that is the decision that the government, the parliament needs to take. You've seen the recent pressure following the acid attacks. There's a pressure now to increase the sentencing, because sentencing must be punishable. That person must get a lesson that actually they shouldn't do that. There is a point in that respect. And yes, I agree, perception is there that black and ethnic minorities actually get a harsher deal from the court system, but the judiciary is doing its best to make sure we cover
it's
that.
not a perception, it's the reality, it's a fact.
There have been various studies which were doing that, but in terms of actually revising the guideline, that's a matter for the parliament, and because the parliament actually sets the sentence, and that's where it should really go.
No, but I think also there is. Sorry to just.
No, that's fine.
But I think there's also systems in place to punish these perpetrators. But it's definitely, we've seen that a person from an ethnic background seems to receive a higher custodial sentence. The 18 weeks and 36 weeks. Which a few of these far right leaders got. It's like some people are punished for stealing tissue from boots. This is absolutely ridiculous, and these people have incited hatred amongst people, and these people have caused people to go out there and purposely hurt others.
Causing a misery in people's livelihood. Yes,
it's
absolutely.
a ripple effect, right? And by giving these people these kind of sentences, it's not acceptable, and this is one of the things that the youth feel like very strongly about.
Okay.
And feel
sentencing
very
needs to be
unfair.
proportionate with the crime, basically. That's what
Can I just add on that? We talked about sentencing. Okay, what happens when they end up in a custodial sentence? I question the level of work and engagement. If somebody's gone in serving a custodial sentence, will they get appropriate help and support to address the issues that they've gone into prison for? I doubt. I don't know what packages or support, workshop, whether it's workshop or what work is being these people are being engaged in, because they're going to come out after their 36 weeks, and I don't think any of us are sure what work they will actually engage in. Will they address?
If I may come in,
Yeah, I
there are
mean,
different
yeah.
programs depending upon how long people are in for. But unfortunate fact of the reality is that 70% of people who go to prison end up reoffending.
Reoffending, right.
Because they've now seen the prison, they know what it's like. I mean, I've had people who say, look, I want to go back because I can't cope with life outside. So therefore, punishment is there, definitely. They lose their liberty, but rest of the facilities are there for them to enjoy a normal life as such. So that's why I think there is far more great emphasis now in terms of community rehabilitation through community service orders, probation service, so that you actually make people realize what they've done wrong and actually amend themselves to be a good citizen. That seems to
But
be
I
more
still
effective.
have, I've not heard, maybe it's either, my negligence or ignorance, but, you've got packages like anger management program, reoffending, programs, but is there a specific program to deal with?
There are programs for anger management, for rehabilitation, but they are by and large linked with the community orders as opposed to prisons. Because if you stay in the community,
once these people have served their time, as you said, they can come out, reoffend, and go back in again.
Statistically, that is a reality, unfortunately, yes. Therefore, this prison isn't actually having an effective impact on people.
Okay.
Because it is a totally different word for
All right, look, I've only got about five minutes left in my program. What I want to get at, obviously, this letter, as we have shown to our viewers at the beginning of the program, is clearly causing a distress, a misery in our community. They're trying to divide our community. What is it that people can do between now and the 3rd of April and thereafter to stay safe?
Well, firstly, as I said earlier, this letter has only gone to a small number of people across the country, but unfortunately has been WhatsApp.
It's gone viral on the social media.
To many people.
Yes.
So the key message that we would like to pass through, and which is in fact what we agree with the police as well, is not to worry too much about this. Be vigilant. Don't disrupt your daily life. Go about your normal life as you normally do. Don't let that fear scare you from actually refraining from your routine that you are undertaking. And if you do get it, report it to police. If it is an envelope that you don't recognize or you feel slightly worried about, don't open it. Hand it over to police. And if the schools are having some difficulty, then you need to work with them to make sure that they understand what the difficulties you're going through. And secondly, there is Tell Mama site. They have guidance on their website in terms of what you can do or should do.
There are organizations out there that people
But I think the key message is, please don't spread this any more than you have already done so, because all we are doing is helping the cause of the perpetrators.
So don't give it a high priority.
That's it. Don't give it high priority.
I think
Don't spread it anymore.
Okay, Zain, what's your?
I think also what they're trying to do, which is what we must understand, they're trying to divide. They're trying to divide us, right? We have a wonderful system, right, of everybody coexisting together, right? And we must not let them divide us. And one of their sole purpose is to divide us. Another purpose is to cause hysteria. But definitely, without a doubt, I think it's, unfortunately, in some places, it's caused harm and it is causing harm. So
and it will increase. So people just need to be vigilant.
We definitely need to be vigilant.
Thank you, Zain. Mumtaz, what's your final message for people to stay safe and to ensure that they are not distracted too much by this letter?
I think for our community, I would say don't engage in retaliating with these perpetrators. Okay, if you are challenged, I would heavily encourage people to report it to the police. And a particular message for sisters who are at home, if there are unknown faces that come and knock on your door, be extra vigilant. Make sure you ask for IDs. Look out through your window. Check who these people are. Don't just open your door to strangers. You know, again, the specific, what's been mentioned about hijabis, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think, you know, go out perhaps in pairs, you know, carry on doing your daily task. I wouldn't particularly say to anybody, don't go out.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That is bringing us to the end of our program. As our guests have said, that don't let this letter worry you too much. Don't let this letter stop you from going about your daily business. If you need to go out in pairs, and make sure that you stay in touch with your community. If you have a knock on the door, if you get a parcel, make sure that if the parcel looks suspected, that you contact the police by calling 101 or 999, whatever, and let the police come and help you out. If you have a knock on your door, if it's a stranger you don't know, don't open the door to them, ask to see their IDs, and basically stay vigilant. They will not divide our community, although they are trying very hard, and as some of our guests have said, that they are trying to get the message across by making us worried, by making us go to programs like ourselves and going to the media, because that would help them to spread the message that they're trying to get across. So don't let them do that. Make sure that you stay in touch with your neighbors, your local community. If you are worried, if you have received a letter, get in touch with the police, get in touch with the local councillors, your elected representatives, your MPs, and just make sure that, you know, you do what you need to do. Don't let them deter you. Don't let them put you off from going on about your normal business. If you are worried, or if you know someone who is worried, phone them up, give them some help, direct them to these agencies that are out and about, that can help you with problems that you may have encountered. And basically, you know, you are here, you are part of the British community. Don't let anyone say anything otherwise. We make up the diverse community, and we are proud to be part of that diverse community. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the program. Thanks to my guests for coming along, and I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God keep you safe until our next program. Thank you and good night.